Our next speaker is Jim Schultz, founder and managing partner of Open Prairie. Jim is a fifth-generation agricultural investor and entrepreneur. He has over 40 years of investment experience. Jim has been instrumental in starting and providing capital to companies throughout the U.S. And at Open Prairie, he has served in a board capacity at several portfolio companies, including Legacy Seed Companies, Vesteron Corporation, Agravita, New Leaf Symbiotics, and Commoditag. In addition to his career in private equity, Jim has held senior leadership positions with the Illinois State Chamber of Commerce and the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago Small Business Advisory Council. Please help me welcome Jim.
Look, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for the warm introduction. It's great to be a part of Exceed the Seed today. You know, as I look at the question you've asked and the challenges and barriers to new innovations, I think there's three that I focus on when we're talking to companies. One is farmer engagement, grower engagement. We see that as often a missing piece of a presentation. And what are the farmers saying and how are they using new technologies and new opportunities? Secondly, in many cases, particularly we see this from Silicon Valley as it relates to the Midwest channels and distribution patterns, there's a lack of knowledge of how ag retail and ag co-ops operate in the ecosystem. And I think that's a critical missing link in many cases. You can have the best technology, but if you can't get it into the channel, it's really something we scratch our heads about and say, how does that become a meaningful revenue generator for a startup company? And then finally is return on investment. It's not a case of build it and they will come. It's a case of showing the farmer that every penny of investment is going to generate additional ROI for that farmer or grower. And we don't, in many cases, see that ROI being represented or presented. So if I was an entrepreneur, I'd be talking about farmer engagement, talking about channel partnerships, and about ROI. You know, there's so many great technologies out in the market today with so much promise and wonderful entrepreneurs with a lot of enthusiasm. And I would encourage innovators as they look at their pathway from their idea to a commercial launch to think about four things. And one of those is really important. It's going to always be the case, I believe, is field trials and having 3 to 5 seasons of field trials to point to show consistency and repeatability of the product or opportunity. And I'm talking more about crop input. Another thing that's really important is understanding the path to making it a gross margin positive kind of product. We see a lot of product launches that are negative gross margins. So the cost of goods sold is greater than the ability to generate revenue. Tied to both of those is having a great independent professional organization like AgriAuthority managing these field trials, managing the commercialization launch, and helping think through a lot of the aspects about building a profitable business. And then lastly, I would encourage entrepreneurs to think about bringing in key opinion leaders. I know that working with AgriAuthority, they've been helpful in finding some of those individuals from time to time. But I think those would be 4 aspects of what I think are good pathways to commercialization. Field trials, understanding COGS, having a good CRO relationship, and having good key opinion leaders as part of your team. There's probably 2 things that I would focus on as far as how to be successful, and then maybe secondly, where the opportunities are that I believe exist today. A collaboration and farmer-grower trust are 2 areas I think an entrepreneur needs to be very focused on. We see often what I call the Sun Tzu strategy of Silicon Valley, and that is just take no prisoners, win the war. In rural America and in the Midwest where we operate and where a lot of the traditional growing crops are raised, it's a different, more collaborative approach, and it's a small town approach and working together to achieve ends that I think sometimes is lost with some of the new technologies and entrepreneurs that we see from time to time. And then the farmer and grower trust is really critical. Who owns the farm gate today and who's going to own the farm gate tomorrow, I would contend is going to be not unlike where we are today. I think it's a generational thing that has been in development for decades, maybe approaching a century. I know in our own family business that was an important element of success in the seed business, was that relationship that started with a grandfather and went to a father and then to a son and then to ultimately that great-grandson or great-granddaughter. And then as far as opportunities today, we look particularly at two areas that we think are really burgeoning today. One is controlled environment agriculture, vertical farming, glass house, greenhouse. We think with what's happened in the last year, it's become even more relevant and also become more obvious that you can make these operations profitable. Until this time, we didn't feel that way. Until last year at this time, we continued to see inability to generate profitable CEA kind of opportunities. And then another area where we see a lot of future opportunities, automation, robotics, remote monitoring, those types of technologies. That's where we at Open Prairie today are spending our time and focus. It's been a pleasure to be here, part of the Exceed the Seed forum today. I wish I could meet with all of you in person, but again, thank you for the opportunity to present.